You mentioned Ambler Farm. Let's talk about the Ambler Farm Lease. I'm sure you've
Oh,
watched that process. I'm sure you've
yes.
seen, how it went. How do you view that situation? Any opinions on restoring the yellow house? Any thought on how to make the situation better?
And maybe anything about the handling of the lease too,
Yeah, yeah.
the way
Yeah,
that
yeah.
all unfolded.
Yes. Um, I like the last part of your question, how to make it better, Heather. Um, I'll back up and maybe start from the very beginning. So I believe that the town's obligation and that the lease agreement should obligate the town for the minimum that the town is obligated for. And I think the reason is as taxpayers, that's what the town should do, obligate us for the minimum that we're required. Then I think we need to look at the farm and what we want to do with the farm. I think if you ask me, I believe that the majority of people in this town support Ambler Farm and would be willing to pay more for Ambler Farm. So I just think that outside of a lease, whether it's providing additional funding to Ambler Farm, there are ways to do it. We can vote on it. I think it should be done. It was interesting. I look back at our last election. If you look at the two items on the ballot that got the most yes votes for and the most against, Ambler Farm and the turf field. So you have people that love sports and the turf field. Oh, let's do the turf field, not Ambler Farm. You have all the people, so that people love both of them, and they're both great. And I just feel like we're kind of getting caught up between what we're required to do and what we want to do. And I think we obligate ourselves for what we're required to do, but then we address what we want to do separately. Does that answer your question a little bit, Heather?
I think so. What does Andy Warren want to do?
With Ambler Farm?
Mhm.
Well, so I'm my kids are older. I would have loved Ambler Farm growing up myself. I had a farm in my backyard, a little square, but I would have loved it. I think it's great. I think it's a great resource for the town. I think it's great for young people to learn farming and all the things that they do. I think we need to support Ambler Farm. I think we should have refurbished the house. I think we should be more involved in the programs that are put on. I think we should utilize it as best we can because it's a great town amenity that people love. And I think again, if you talk to people about what they love about town, that's always one of the things that comes up. And I think it's important to maintain that. And I guess going back to the lease, it's a little bit tough only because I sort of only know what I know, so to speak, because I know there's a lot of talking and things that go on. Um, and so I'll kind of preface it by giving you my understanding of how it happened and then maybe how it should have happened. And my understanding is there were a lot of negotiations for the lease before it was brought to the Board of Selectmen. And then when it was brought to the Board of Selectmen had questions, but it was kind of like, well, the Friends of Ambler Farm have been waiting. They thought this was going to be the deal, and now we're holding it up. And so it was a process issue. And I think that's kind of what it came down to. It was brought to the people to approve it sort of after it had been negotiated rather than before. And so when they ask questions, then all of a sudden they're holding it up, so to speak. So I think it should have been a more open process from the very beginning, whether that's, probably not very wouldn't make sense to have the Board of Selectmen all involved necessarily, but a process. We're going to communicate. We're going to have a special meeting. We're going to talk about the negotiations. This is what we're thinking so that you don't get to the end, get it to approve and have a big problem with it. Or just stall the process, take longer.